Thanks for tuning in to another episode of And Then We Win, the sports social work podcast designed to talk about all the things focused around sports social work. I got into this because a lot of people ask me, what is sports social work? And since not many people knew about it, I was like, well, let's just have a conversation around it. And so I'm Dr. Justin Singleton. I'm fortunate and glad that you're able to tune into another episode. As this episode, we have another former athlete. We're collecting the athlete's voice for a string about 3 or 4 episodes here. And this one's very important as we had Mike Wilhoit last episode, who's the coach for the NFL, several teams in the NFL, and he also played in the NFL for a couple of years too. And so great to have him on the podcast and share some insight. And then now we have my frat brother, James Jenkins. Now I'm a member of Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated, proud member. And so James, when I said I was doing the podcast, first thing he said was like, I want to get on and I want to talk about transition, because he has transitioned to a career professional now for the airport authority here in Nashville, Tennessee, as a compliance specialist. But his journey just didn't start there. He played football at Kentucky State University, Saybred. I think that's one of their calls. He's a proud alumni of that school. And then he took some time to play semi-pro in a couple of leagues, some defunct now and some are actually still in operation. And he took some time to realize that he needed to move on because it was just that time. And for some athletes, transition is pretty easy. And some athletes transition pretty hard, especially when you've been playing the game for, majority of your life. And then if you're fortunate to go to the pros, you're spending a couple more years. And so you spend majority of your life obtaining identity of just being an athlete or being a football player or being a basketball player or a soccer player. And so for so long, you've identified this, and now you're just like, oh, I got to go into the real world now, or whatever world that is. And so whether it happened by voluntary purposes or involuntary, it is difficult to make that transition because you're doing something, you're walking into a new space that you may not be comfortable in, or you just have no idea what to do. And so James spent some time to talk about his period of transition and when it was time for him to, hang up the cleats and, focus on some other areas. And he talks about how he had to do it and what signs they were. So I'm not going to get the whole episode way in the introduction, but I do thank you all for tuning in. I hope you enjoy this episode. And one more thing, as the summer get ready to ramp up, I started a new little venture as part of my consulting business. So I'm going to do some work around Just Single Visionary Academy, where I provide some services and support to those who are in either rural areas or Title I school areas. So if you want to inquire more about it, please email me at info@justsinglevision.com as I can give you more of a layout and information about what I plan to do for those 2 areas that I want to focus on. And so I've done enough talking, so let's go ahead and hop right into the episode. All right, and welcome to another episode of And Then We Win. It's me, Dr. Justin Singleton. I am the founder of Just Single Vision and one of the hosts for And Then We Win. And I am fortunate to have Mr. James Jenkins with him today. His list is very expansive, so he is actually a compliance specialist for the Metro Nashville Airport Authority. He's had a lengthy career with the Small Business Administration. He's worked with TSA. We all know not to mess with TSA, so you don't want to mess with him. And he's also an illustrious alum of K-State, Kentucky State, which is located in Frankfort, Kentucky, if I'm correct?
Mhm.
Frankfort,
Yep,
Kentucky.
that's it.
So HBCU, say bread. I know that's a term, so give a shout out for them. But definitely that is not why he's here. We always have guests who's related to sports. And you're just like, this man has a very professional career. What the heck is he doing here? And so we have James. He actually was a 4-year player at K-State on the offensive line. There, he also played for Nashville Venom, the professional indoor football league. He served as a coach and a player and helped them win their first championship in 2014. He didn't tell me about it. I know this guy for a long period of time, but he didn't also let me know he's a player, coach, and a champion. He knocks off all 3 of the checklists. And he also played football for the defunct league out of in Eastern Kentucky right now. So he's here. James, thanks for being here. Do you want to share? Did I knock off everything? Did I say everything I need to say for the introduction?
Nah, that was it. That was it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so I'm happy he's here today because oftentimes, when we talk about he has a very professional career, and he's made that transition from being playing college football and then playing indoor league. But we all know that transition it can be challenging, and even making sure that you have your appropriate identity when you're leaving the game, and sometimes you're being still recognized as an athlete, or you get bombarded with those questions. So we're gonna hit all the hot topics about that today because in the sports social work field, transition and identity are two topics that we become encountered with. And sounds like James is successfully, or as he's put on the front and let us know that he did make it through that transition as well, but something he's very passionate about. And so, James, let's talk about your first big transition. You transitioned from the college to playing semi-pro ball. So, what was that like for you in regards to making that change of going to playing on the big Saturdays, you're at the college campus, and being a person that's known on the campus and definitely going to the semi-pro league. What was that like for you as far as a transition purpose?
Well, I think during that time, it was definitely a bit of an identity crisis around that time too, 'cause, man, during those time at the time yeah, this was 2011, and I was working on campus at Kentucky State, working for their after-school program.
Mhm,
Served as a mentor coordinator for the, Promising Youth Center for Excellence, and we served kids. It was African American and Hispanic children ages 9 through 15, I wanna say in Franklin County, in Kentucky.
mhm,
And then we also had a mixture of some kids from our other programs. It was, and both of those programs were basically those programs did have they brought mentoring. We were able to get people within the community or also campus students to become mentors. And basically during that time, I was doing that and also going through grad school. I went for my master's in public administration with an international development concentration, just thinking it was, something that can help push me towards work in the federal government at the time.
mhm,
I come from the Maryland, DC area, and, that's kinda what my family knows. I mean, my brother and I were born in New York, and then we transitioned down to the, DC, Maryland area, and so that's kinda all we knew kinda growing up. And so yeah, once doing that and, athletics and sports was always on my mind.
mhm,
And, at first, I just didn't think I would be able to kinda get back into it, but I had ventured on to, Euro Players. I think that if that website is still active and it helps athletes that are just out of college get to the next level, help and get them to, whether they're playing overseas or whether they're playing in some, different leagues and stuff here in the US. And so one of the guys that, kept up with me, he was one of the coaches for the Eastern Kentucky Drillers
mhm,
out of, Pikeville, Kentucky. So, for reference, think of the coal country. So, everything Eastern Kentucky into West Virginia, it was one of those small coal towns, and I didn't know nothing about it.
mhm,
And told me about a league that was, just underway, and there were 6 teams. There were the, Jonestown Generals up in Jonestown, Pennsylvania. There was the, Saginaw Sting, the Northern Kentucky River Monsters, the Huntington Hammer out of, Huntington, West Virginia, the Canton Cougars, and then the Eastern Kentucky Drillers. 6 teams in, blue collar towns, but the league was solid. The league continued for, I think, for a few years.
mhm.
As I got a chance to really learn a lot more about arena football, you would see some of those leagues be here 1 minute and then be gone the next minute. And um, so I figured why not? My pay for the, Promising Youth Center for Excellence had kinda been cut a little bit
Mhm.
because, just the grant, the nonprofit side, and that was kinda yeah. So
Yeah.
I'm sure you know about that. So, I mean, so I was working part-time, and then it was just like, "Why not?" So I can go ahead and, drive. I never wanted to stay out there. I always had a bad feeling about Pikeville. That was one thing you learned in Kentucky. You knew your big cities, but when it comes to those small towns, it's a question. You get a little
Oh, yeah.
skeptical. So I decided why not, and, I would, usually venture out there maybe twice a week, and then the game,
Mhm,
uh, practice and everything, and the drive. from Frankfort, Kentucky, all the way out to Pikeville was 2.5 hours one way. But mind you, this was during a time when I was young.
Yeah.
I was young. I'm like, 2.5, that's not bad, whatever. So I would drive out there for practice, and the coach was great. We still keep in contact today, and he was nice enough to be like, "Hey, if you wanna stay out here, we got a room and all that stuff." And I was like, "Okay, no."
Thanks.
So, thanks for no thanks, I'm good. So, yeah, ended up playing, that season in 2011, a lot of good names. I still remember a few guys, from they were from the University of Kentucky. Let me see, there was 3 guys in particular, but one of them happened to actually, be amongst the same fraternity that we're a part of as well, Phi Beta Sigma
Okay.
Fraternity Incorporated. Yeah, David Jones from the University of Kentucky. I know he's still coaching, I believe, he's coaching high school ball out in, West Virginia, and, me and him keep in touch a little bit here and there, but got a great chance to play against a lot of good guys. I mean, even one notable name was Jared Lorenzen. He was University of Kentucky's quarterback. He played for the Northern Kentucky River Monsters. He was the only one to wear the number 22 at quarterback. This guy was AKA Hefty Lefty. He was a very large left-handed quarterback. And great experiences. We made it all the way to the championship game, and unfortunately lost against the Saginaw Sting. But it was a great experience. It was a great experience at that time, and yeah, it was the first opportunity playing pro ball there, playing arena ball, and it was just a great time, and figured it would be something I could continue. However, when we talk about the stages of life and just where things were going, I was still kind of keeping my applications going because that was my bread and butter.
Mhm.
One of the things that folks don't know is that playing the arena football did not it wasn't the bread and butter. It wasn't something that I could truly rely on or live off of completely.
Mhm.
So yeah, I had to be real about my situation. And so at that time, that's when I had some applications going and then ended up working for TSA out at Lexington Bluegrass Airport.
Mhm.
And let me see. By then, they had even asked me if I was interested in returning, and I was like, "Unfortunately, I can't. My schedule is I think my days off were Tuesday and Wednesday."
Mhm.
So there was no opportunity there. The games were on Saturdays, of course, and there was just no opportunity to do that. But around that time, I ended up meeting another coach by the name Billy Back, and I think he's still active as a coach within the arena football leagues. And so
Mhm.
he was coaching for the Cincinnati Commandos, the Cincinnati Commandos. And so I figured one night I was able to kind of go up there and just practice because it was a lot closer. Cincinnati compared to Pikeville was a lot closer in Lexington,
Mhm.
and went up to a drive and went for a practice. And he was impressed by what I could do, and he was like, so he's like, hey, we like to have you on the squad. What are you doing these days? And I told him what was happening, told him who I was working with at the time, and I was like, honestly, I don't think this would be able to work too, especially with the game being on Saturday. Even if it's closer and all that stuff, it still is just not gonna
Mhm.
be suitable. And so we still kind of kept in touch a little bit more. Yeah, was still working with TSA, and I would still stay in shape a little bit too. Just go out there running and whatnot. I used to
Mhm.
do a little bit of running down in Lexington, Kentucky, and then over time I found a new job working in Nashville, Tennessee. And yeah, I can tell a little bit more about that. But yeah, eventually ended up working for another federal agency, the Small Business Administration down here in Nashville, Tennessee. And yeah, I can tell, like I said, I can talk a little bit more.
Yeah.
But
It sounds like you had a lot of going back and forth a little bit, like you were you like, you need a job, you had a job, and you were going the professional route, but then you were still kinda hold on to football a little bit, like, it sounded like you wanted to go even when you went from Pikeville to, like, even consider going to Cincinnati,
mhm,
like, you still want to play, but it was just like, "I can't because X, Y, and Z," and sometimes and you may have noticed, like, sometimes some players have that difficulty of, like, knowing when to, like, let go of one or the other. And so, how was it for you, and what were you able to do? Because I know, like, we all know money is the true indicator, but we have those hopes and dreams, it's like that still has an impact. And so, how was it for you to say, "Hey, I may need to let one go over the other one," even though, like, I still have this pure love for football because clearly it's love will keep you going back to that game back and forth.
Yeah. I it was difficult. It was difficult, but easy at the same time.
Mhm,
It was easy in knowing what I had to rely on. It was easy with being real with my situation. I had a pretty solid college career, but was it something that I could continue to pursue even further like, into the CFL or the
mhm,
NFL, all that stuff? And the answer was no. I think that's one thing that a lot of athletes have to take in mind is, what are my next steps? Is this something I wanna continue and pursue and go further? And
mhm,
and it's okay. It's okay that the answer is no on that one. Is it tough? Absolutely. But you have to be real about your situation. You
mhm,
have to take, the lessons that you learned from the past and take that moving forward.
mhm,
I think later in life I was able to kind of take some of that stuff that I learned from ball and maybe help others,
mhm,
which that'll be something we can discuss a little bit further, but that also goes into to one's purpose.
mhm,
Just about helping others, some of the things that you have seen, that you've experienced, and how can you help the next person, whether they're kind of continuing a similar path or maybe something different, and maybe some of those words can are beneficial to them as well. And so yeah, that's what I kind of learned. That's what I kind of learned. I mean, it was easy
mhm.
but difficult letting go,
Yeah.
and but
And
it
so
w-
you
but it
mentioned something earlier, like you say, keeping it real with yourself about doing this. So, and I know you've seen some players because you played in the system with Marine football for quite some time, for a few
Mhm,
years, and you probably seen some who wasn't able to keep it real for themselves.
mhm.
And so, what was that, or can you share like what would be like the best moment to actually consider when to keep it real with yourself? Is it something like when you first get started, or maybe you like 4 or 5 years down the road in the league? So
Mhm.
when is that moment? When do you think is that moment it should be for the a keep it real moment?
Man, that keep it real moment was in 2014 when I was playing here in Nashville with the Nashville Venom. So,
Mhm,
as I mentioned earlier, Billy Back, he coached with the Cincinnati Commandos, and then he left for another team in Texas, the Wichita Nighthawks, down in Wichita Falls, Texas. And then he ended up coming to Nashville to being the coach for a new team in a new league, the Nashville Venom. And so that's how we reconnected
mhm,
and was able to get on the team and play. And one of the first things I had noticed, my original position, I'll say the last position that I played was center,
mhm,
and my snaps were not getting back to the quarterback as best as they could. So
mhm,
I ended up getting switched to playing guard, knowing that I'm still able to be a center, but got switched to a guard. So it's like, okay. And the first game that we had was against the Alabama Hammer from Huntsville, Alabama.
okay.
And by the end of the game, I felt like Rocky in at the beginning of Rocky 5 when he was in the locker room shaking. I'll never forget it. Like I was hovering over a trash can thinking I was going to vomit. And
Yeah,
it was like my whole body was like kind of shaking. And even the quarterback walked by, he was like, "You good?" And I was like, "I don't know. I really don't know." And then on top of that, it was a terrible game for me.
mhm,
Went up against a kid who was fresh out of college. Interestingly, played for one of our rival teams, a rival conference team from back in my college days. He played from Tuskegee University. Shout out to
mhm,
Tuskegee. And this kid was fresh out of college. Me, I'm far removed from college.
mhm,
My working full time, and my workouts were a lot different compared to what I used to do. And so it was at that moment, it was just going downhill from there.
mhm,
I just knew this was probably going to be the break year.
mhm.
And so, thankfully, the coach kept me on the team. In arena ball, if you're not producing, if you're if you're only able to play one position, then that's it.
Yeah.
Especially if it's guys that travel and live out of state as well. But I was able to play a few more games during that season, was able to help the team and, hey, we won the championship that year.
Mhm.
But it was also around that time where I'm still doing applications for jobs because my mind at that point is set on what you gonna do for your career, man. What you
Mhm.
gonna do for your career? And like, this is great, this is fun, but come on now.
Yeah.
It's kind of a bit of a wrap at this point. And so yeah, I had finally decided to just kind of hang it up after that season,
Mhm.
and came back to coach on the team and provided some good expertise there, and was able to assist. And then after 2015, the team had folded. I think the league had folded. Actually, around that, yeah, the league had folded as well.
Mhm.
And a lot of those guys that I played with, they were gone. Some were done. Some um, ended up moving. Some went back home, and then they ended up playing for other teams. And
Mhm.
some folks I just didn't keep up with, and went from there. So by that time, I was content.
Mhm.
'Cause there was no way of going back to playing at that level again, and I was okay. Because by then it still goes back to identity at that point
Mhm.
too. It's understanding your purpose, understanding, what you're trying to do with sports, and then understanding, where you are in your
Mhm.
career. And sometimes you just had to take a step back, and thankfully, I didn't have any long-standing injuries from that too, because a lot of
Mhm.
people get put on the sidelines permanently because of injuries,
Forced
and
out the game. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And thankfully, I didn't have any injuries
Yeah,
at that
yeah.
time. I had to think back. I was like, "Did I have any?" I was like, "Nah." I mean, maybe a hyperextended elbow in 2014. Otherwise, that was
Yeah.
it. So thankfully, I was able to walk away, um, injury free,
Mm. It sounded
and
like you
just
had a lot of moments where it was a lot of self-actualization and realization, like, "Hey, I need to, sit back and really think about what's happening here with this
mhm,
football thing."
yeah.
Going through that process, and if you even went through a process, how was your mental health at that time frame? 'Cause I'm pretty sure there was a lot of back and forth going. Because I mean, it's hard to give up anything, especially when it's a sport that you've been playing for quite some time and love, and so just thinking about, like, how was your mental health or anything like that during that time frame, and or what did you need in that space? Because everybody's experience is different. And so, like, what was some good needs, and what was your mental health like during that time frame?
I think during that time, I think I was in a good position. This was 2015, 2016. So around that time, I think I was really in a good headspace.
Mhm.
I really was. I'll say I was in a good headspace, but I know there were things that I was really trying to understand a bit more.
Mhm.
I think throughout the twins during that time, while I was working with the SBA, and I was just trying to, I guess, solidify what my purpose was.
Mhm.
So even though, yeah, I was in a good space, there was still that thing of just trying to make sure that I'm just doing the right things, and positioning myself for success, and
Mhm.
continually networking, and just. But yeah, I mean, things were fine. Things were
Mhm.
honestly good. I had plenty of things that were happening around that time, that were really speaking to me.
Mhm.
I mean, just yeah. I mean, I got a chance to play ball, had a chance to meet a president, had a chance to man. It took some time, but finally, kind of had my head on my shoulders. But then I was okay sports wise, but
Mhm.
professionally, I think it started to become a place of I'm not satisfied.
Mm.
'Cause I'm not like, this isn't where I'm gonna be forever.
Mhm.
I mean, I was helping people that I would meet kinda in different places all around town. I
Mhm.
would meet people, and come to find out, like, "You're somebody I needed to talk to. I've been trying to start a business forever, and, it's
Mhm.
this, it cost me that," and then it's like, "Okay." That piece kinda remained. That
Mhm.
even though it wasn't as, even though it wasn't as vocal to me, it
Mhm.
wasn't, but it was still kinda speaking to me because it was like, "Okay, like, I don't like the job that I'm in, but
Mhm.
there are things that my job provide that are helping people, and that's something I can actually, take on from that point.
Yeah.
Yeah, and, I knew things were gonna be okay.
Okay.
Yeah, and then actually around that time, so while my professional playing career was done, and then coaching, that 2015 season had finished, I ended up coaching with, a couple of other our fraternity brothers,
Okay.
and so ended up having a chance to kinda give back, and so it's like, "Okay, this is fun. This is" there's and it made me think back a little bit because these are younger kids, they're man, I wanna say maybe middle school at the time,
Mhm.
middle school kids, and helping them understand technique. And that was something that I can kind of take away from my old playing days and provide to them. Not even I'm not here to yell. I'm not getting on you like that and all that stuff because
Yeah.
I can leave that to our frat brother Greg Pollard. I can leave that to but it was just teaching technique and helping them understand, a bit more about the game rather than just, bumping heads and all that stuff. It's like, nah, let's talk hand placement. Let's talk feet. Let's
Mhm.
talk plays and all that stuff. What are you thinking? Your critical thinking skills. So
Mhm.
it was UNA, and then also it went to Franklin Road Academy and
Mhm.
coached the fifth and sixth grade team there on the offensive line and defensive line, and that was an amazing opportunity there. So while I was still trying to figure things out career wise, the signs for purpose and identity really started to line up a little bit there. But then also that athletic portion really started to become fulfilled at that point too. And that was like, okay, like this is a better space to be in right here.
I like that because earlier you mentioned about it was all about helping people. So like you kind of had a full understanding, like, okay, my purpose in this sport, even though if I'm not playing every day or I'm
Mhm,
not practicing playing, 5, 6 days out the week and to the big game, like you knew there was a purpose alongside with it. Because sometimes we don't take the time to focus on like the purpose of the game or the purpose of the
mhm,
sport. We just
mhm,
want to go out there and get the glory and all the glitz of the game. But
mhm,
for you, it's more like, okay, I know I may not be go to NFL or CFL or some other things, but for some apparent reason, purpose is the power behind of it all. And so
mhm,
your purpose came in from helping people. And so you went out there and sought out other opportunities to provide and support that purpose with them and even in your career focus too. And
mhm,
so I think that's special in a way that you have a mindset of like, okay, yeah, I love the game. I may not be able to participate in it every day like I want to, but how can
mhm,
I give back and how can I help and participate in it every day? And so you shared that, and you also mentioned how important it is for you to you're focusing on your career. And so oftentimes I know, and you may notice that some athletes they may not have the best careers coming straight out of college. Basically because what is studied and whatnot. And so, why was it important for you to have that balance of making sure that you set up your career while also playing too? Because that could be challenging for a lot of athletes as well.
it really can. A lot of people may not have the opportunity
Mhm.
to some people it just never completely worked out. I know my parents did play a role in kind of, providing some good feedback for me because
Mhm.
I was so focused at that point after graduating college about my career. It was like, "Okay, what am I gonna do?"
Mhm.
There were a few things that kinda just fell through, and then it was like, "Okay, what am I gonna do? What am I gonna do here? What am I gonna do? Like, how are we gonna make money here? We gotta be for real."
Mhm.
That, yeah, they would always kinda, stay on me about that, and, so the influence came from them, but
Mhm.
it also was within me to kind of to realize, like, "Yeah, that's kinda true. Nothing's really lining up here." So it's like, it's like, "What you gonna do?" So hopefully things went the way they did. They lined the way they did. And, but going back a little bit, you kind of, as you were talking just about the purpose and the ability to help people. As an offensive lineman, that is our key thing of what we're
Yeah.
doing. We're helping, protect our quarterback. We're helping to protect our running backs and even wide receivers, on specific plays and everything. And so
Mhm.
I think that kinda came naturally, and, that was something that just kinda really stuck with me at that point too, because
Mhm.
it's yeah, that was just something you took pride in because, to see the opposition take down your teammates and stuff like that, I mean, it's tough, and you
Yeah.
wanna make sure that you're doing everything that you're supposed to do to protect them.
Mhm.
So, I mean, I had, one bad lesson, one misstep that I had taken once and got one of my teammates unfortunately, he got hurt.
Mhm.
And that kinda just stuck with me because it was like, damn, like, I just let him down, I let the team down and stuff like that, and
Mhm.
so again, so I kinda carried that, it's like you are put in a position to do what needs to be done to help people.
Mhm.
I am all for getting dirty just so my teammate can stay clean and score and do the things that he can do better than me.
Mhm.
So, yeah.
That's
Yeah.
great, man. It made me realize that I didn't think about like your role as an offensive lineman and like, how important it is that you are the helper of the field. And I
Mhm.
was just thinking about how important it is. Like you can actually everybody talk about you can take skills away from the sport and apply it elsewhere. A lot of people talk about that mentality portion a lot. So that mentality of being an offensive lineman is just like, look, I got to do the dirty work. So at the end of the game, it gets done.
Mhm.
With the hopefully with a W at the on the scoreboard. And so that is very important. And since we're talking about, that identity, I do want to kind of shift gears a little bit because oftentimes as an offensive lineman, you're 6 foot 40, a good solid, a couple 100 pounds. And so when you walk around, you look like an offensive lineman. And it comes up often. And we talk about this in our circles a whole lot. And I try to get you to calm down. But it's just one of those things that we do. Heck, even I haven't played a lick of football since 2001, and I have bulked up some because of weightlifting and everything. But people are like, oh, like you played. In fact, the dean of the school I had to work at just asked me, like you play sports a little bit. It's just one of those things. And so I know it happens often. It comes up a lot. And so when it comes to that, I mean, we're in the South. Football is king down here. It's always, God, family, and football down here. And you being a northerner, up from up top, a little bit different. So does that really trigger, just thinking from another, like, does it really trigger you? Because I often think about, yeah, it may feel like a badge of honor to play the sport, but oftentimes you just want to be let go from the game and being identified as an athlete. And so when I was thinking about how our conversation, like, is it more triggering for the fact that I'm always identified as the football star? Or it could it be that, man, because of maybe some past experiences or whatnot, or like my goals and dreams that didn't come into fruition, that now I always have to go back and think about the game itself instead of me actually just being an athlete. So I guess I want to kind of get an idea of like, which one is it really? You know?
It is so funny you bring this up because it's happened today.
Exactly.
I'm at the Nissan dealership. And get the oil change and basically we had family day. We went, got Isaac's haircut,
Mhm.
and then we went to the African American Music Museum for like a little interactive drumming thing
Okay.
for the kids. And then I get back to the dealership after oil change and getting ready to sign and all that stuff. And the provider, he was like, hey, I know you get this a lot. And I said, oh my God. But did you play ball? And I didn't shut it down immediately, but what I did
Yeah.
was his question had me answer. I said, I was like, no, I actually help small businesses during the day. Thank you.
Yeah.
He was like, I mean, he's like, no, no, he's like, did you play sports and all that stuff? And I was like, do I play sports now? What do you mean? And he was like,
Mhm.
did you play sports? And I was like, yes, I did play sports. Yes, I played football.
Mhm.
And so uh, I'll say the years after college, I was okay with getting that question.
Mhm.
But years later down the line, I hate the question only
Mhm.
because it seems so it seems so unauthentic because I could literally just be out at the store,
Mhm.
and my wife has to remind me, especially with what I wear. So I have a sweatshirt that says Nike football,
No.
I can't wear my college, my college shirt because then it's like, "Oh, "Oh, is that the school you went to?" It's like, "Yeah, yeah, that's the school I graduated from, yes." "Oh, did you play ball too?" And I was like, "Yeah, yes, I did." And so, like I said, yeah, it's and I'm always I always remind myself. I mean, I just it's just one of those things. It's one of those things I know I have to take into therapy because
Mhm.
I have to find a way to to just I don't know. Uh,
Yeah, yeah.
but like but going back, I hate the question that just comes out of nowhere.
Mhm.
There's no good morning or good afternoon, or there's no excuse me. There's
Mhm.
no, "Oh my gosh, are you a football player?" It's like, please. And so rather than just saying something negative,
Yeah, yeah.
I just ignore it. I legitimately ignore it. Now, one time that I tried to ignore it, the gentleman asked again, and we talked a little bit further, and then come to find out, hey, he played in the NFL back in the day.
Uh,
Okay, oh, and then when I was at Total Wine, at that point, I'm kinda in work mode,
mhm.
because I do for those that don't know, it's like I do, hobby of mine, a paid hobby of mine is working for a bourbon brand, a bourbon out of, Kentucky, so I do different tastings and whatnot. So, at that point, to avoid losing a sale, I'll
Mhm.
be able to kinda, like I can drop that. I
Mhm.
can I can drop my shields and be like, okay, like say, "Hey, did you play ball?" "Yes, I did at one point."
Mhm.
And usually, I mean, a couple of times that's turned into a sale. So the
Mhm.
one time that a gentleman asked me, and we but it was a genuine conversation,
Okay.
and it's a genuine conversation and it gets asked, then yes. It's so much easier.
Mhm.
But the conversation that the gentleman and I had, was a genuine was a genuine. I keep saying the same thing over. But it was a good conversation, and
Mhm.
then, come to find out he played for Alabama. And
Wow.
then it's like, okay, and then we go a little bit further,
Mhm.
he played for, Coach Paul Bear Bryant. So it's like,
Oh, wow.
"Oh, yeah." And then I looked him up, and then it was like, oh, oh, he played in the league." And then I asked him at one point, I was like, "Do you remember somebody named Guy Morris?" And he was like, "Yeah." And I was like, "Yeah, that was my old offensive line coach." And it just went from there, and so
Mhm.
I didn't
It
get the
sounds like it's a
sale.
dual-edged sword. It sounds like it's an opportunity to build community amongst the other individual who might have played. And
Mhm.
sometimes it's just like, okay, that's all you really want. Like you just want the football and that's it. And
Yeah.
so I can see how that be kind of challenging sometimes. I always get on you about it, but because it can be a sense of community, but it's like one of those things that come along with it. But it doesn't have impact on like how you perceive and how you move
Mhm.
moving forward with a lot of areas. I know that could just be aggravating, but you know, even if you could do it all over, or what would be your advice to like an athlete or with dealing with that question? Because it's going to happen a lot of the times, and you probably gonna deal with this until the day you're going up to glory,
Mhm.
when you get that question.
I I think it really is just, my advice would just be to kinda some people take it differently because some
Mm-hmm.
people, they don't care. Some people, they may be the same, have the same
Mm-hmm.
approach, as me, or they just kinda like, "Yeah, I did," and, they'll have the conversation, all that stuff, but, I don't know, it just kinda depends. It's really different for everybody. It just there was nothing painful from football that kinda, triggers that. It's just the approach.
Yeah.
And one thing, as you and Ahmad have said before, is I can't control what people say. So
Mm.
it kinda goes back to me and my response. And so I think it's just all about how to receive and kinda go from there. Maybe take a breath, take a second, and then
Yeah.
reply and go from there. So, it's a thing that, yes, I will have to take into therapy for sure and ask about that. Yeah,
But I mean,
it Mhm,
you're offensive lineman, like you said, you got to help people, and sometimes you definitely got to make sure that you help yourself when it
mhm,
comes to like, okay, I know I'll be identified as this, that's gonna pop up. So like,
mhm.
what do I do to prepare myself so I can help myself when that question comes up? Now it gives you a little
Mhm.
discount every now and then. I mean, hey, why not? You know?
Why not? Why not?
Oh, man. And so, man, just thinking about all the things we talked about today, and like you stressed a lot of importance on how to make sure that when it comes to identity, you like, check in with yourself and realize who you are. I like that correlation that you made between like that position between I'm an offensive lineman, so it's naturally for me to help. And I want to help others. So that's going to help me in my career focus or whatnot.
Mhm,
And so a lot of good, great pointers. And as you know, I always ask all my guests before we end the show, what is critical to the point when we talk about before the winning happens? And like you've shown that you have won on the field and potentially and off the field too through your career moves. It's not like
mhm,
you didn't say, hey, well, I got to have a 5 year gap before I think about my next move. I was
mhm,
thinking about my next move while I was working as playing as an athlete or even working on a job I do have and thinking
mhm,
about that, thinking about like, always end off the show for sure. What is critical to you when we talk about before we talk about winning on and off the field, as you
okay.
have mentioned, you know, what do you need to address before we talk about winning?
What I would say is, how has the game shaped you, and what have you learned, and what can you use
Mm,
in your professional career? And how can what are some of those obstacles in your way? You know, um, I I really think about the current times that we're in,
mhm,
and because we've had this conversation, but with my current job, for those that don't know, was affected by a lot of the policies from
mhm,
last year that were in place of last year. I help a lot of small businesses, and unfortunately, we had to take out a couple items that would assist minority and women-owned
mhm.
small businesses, and so we've had to switch to a race and gender neutral program, which is okay, fine.
Yeah.
But the goal remains the same. There is still there is still an end zone in front of us that we have to get to. And
Mhm,
while some of my coworkers have they've just kind of felt down just about all the changes that have occurred. And it gets us too, but it reminds, we have to look at what are the positives? What are the
mhm.
things that are still around? Well, thankfully, I'm employed.
Yeah.
I'm still employed. Is there a need, or is our program still going to be around? Yes. Is
Mhm,
it going to be different? Yes. Is there some obstacles in our way, and some delays, or is there, what are these things that are kind of, holding us up, and in that time, what are you doing during that wait?
mhm,
So it's been a challenge professionally, but giving up is never the option.
mhm,
Always trying to find different approaches towards strengthening a new program that's going to come about. That has been something that I've kind of taken on. And when there have been times when my colleagues have just really felt down and just they felt a little defeated, I'm like, hey, we're gonna make it. We're gonna be
mhm,
okay. There are some things there are some things that are out there. There are some things that it's gonna take time, and we may not get this as quick as we want to, but it just makes me go back. It just makes me think back to those times, those games when the wins and the losses. A few pancakes, some solid snaps, some bad snaps, some
mhm,
it makes me go back to those times during college and even high school. It's like, what have I learned to bring forward here? Does the mission and the goal change to help small businesses? No. Now more than ever, that fire is it's a lot hotter. It's a lot brighter. I mean, it's like you can't stop the mission. Point
mhm,
blank period. And again, it's a battle going back and forth. We may gain some yards, we may lose some yards, but the goal, the purpose, everything is still right there in front of me. And
mhm,
so, if there's one if I say that to those that are listening, stay encouraged, stay on top of it. I mean, there's going to be regardless of whatever your sport is, there's going to be some good times, there's going to be some bad times, but it's like if the game is still on, point blank period. The game is still on. There's going to be times where we're going to be, man, where it's going to be, there's certain people, there's policies, there's this and there's that. But as long as the game is still on, as long as there's an opportunity, as long as I'm on that field or in that office, we're just gonna keep on going, just gonna keep on fighting. I mean, I remember the times when I didn't enjoy the work that I was doing, but even though
Mhm.
the purpose was still there. Here's a place where I enjoy working, where the purpose is there, where, there's so many positives.
Mhm.
And despite the politics and despite, hidden motives and all that stuff, whatever, man, we're
Mm.
gonna win.
Man, that's awesome. Like I'm starting to love and hate that question because it's like my favorite question to ask people, but then like
Yeah.
I'm ready to suit up and run through a door right now. And
Mhm.
so I like that you shared that, the mission is still gonna be the same. And how important it is not only to make that transition, but to translate what
Mhm.
you use on that field and apply it to what's happening in your professional life. So
Yes.
man, James, thank you. I need to get you off here before I find a football and ready to run through some doors in my house right now. But man, thank you for being here. I greatly appreciate it. And man, I don't know. I got to shut up now because I know what to say because I'm very passionate. So thanks for bringing the fire today. And this has been another episode of Then We Win.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Appreciate it.
And thank you for tuning in to And Then We Win. My name is Dr. Justin Singleton, and I'm a sports social worker. I love what I do. And if you're interested in learning how I can best support your athlete, your parent group, or even the team, please feel free to reach out to me at info@justsinglevision.com. That is info@justsinglevision.com. Feel free to contact me for a free 30-minute consultation so we can figure out how we can best support the mind, vision, and action of your athletes. Thank you and take care.